So let's start this call over again. Everyone, thanks for being with me tonight. My name is Dr. Kirk Fisnick. I'm up here in beautiful North Dakota. It's up in the northern part of the United States, and we've had just a great summer. We've had enough rain to keep things green, and just a lovely summer. And we're going into fall, and I know you guys are going into your springtime if you're down under, and so here's wishing you a really pleasant weekend. And we're celebrating Labor Day weekend up here, and which is a little holiday, and kind of celebrate the fact that we've worked hard over the summer. We get a weekend off to a little bit of kicking back and relaxing before we move into fall hunting season, right? But some of you don't hunt, I do. But tonight I really want to talk about the brain, and I want to talk about a healthy brain function, and maybe reducing your risks of developing dementia and other kinds of degenerative brain disease, and maybe for some of you that might be suffering from a little bit of early onset of dementia. This might be of importance to you, or maybe you have somebody in your family that you care about, that you're worried about, and this might be of extreme importance to them. So, in the United States, they've done a number of surveys, and they found that on those surveys, people are more nervous about losing their mind, about having degenerative a brain condition, than they are of getting cancer. Now, is that because they're just conditioned to think that they're going to get cancer no matter what they do? That now that you're living longer, cancer is just something that happens, and that's kind of what I've been told, that people they've just assumed that they're going to get cancer and they can't do anything about it, and which we all know that's not true. You can do things to lower your risk of cancer, getting rid of some of those toxic products out of your life. Get them out of your bathroom, the most dangerous room in your house. Get them out of there, and start taking some good nutrition, cleaning up the system. I was just talking to somebody today, and I said that when you look at genetic diseases, how much does genetics play in actually getting sick, in getting a chronic disease? And the answer to that is that before the age of, like, let's say 75, 80, somewhere in there, 70, at least for sure 70, before the age of 70, genetics doesn't play that high of a role. Most of the diseases that you get up until that about when you turn 70, most of the diseases that you get are actually controlled by your environment, your outside environment, the things that you do, the things that you eat, the things that you drink, the things that you put on your skin, things that you put in your hair, things that you breathe up your nose. That's going to cause more disease in your life, and then the lack of nutrition, of course. But that's going to cause more disease in your life up until the age of 70 than the role your genetics plays. And then after that, then genetics really starts to play a little bit more significant role in it. And so when you look at somebody who's, like my dad, he's 84 years old, he'll be 85 here at the end of the year. And I look at him, and he's beat cancer 4 times now. He's beat cancer 4 times, and one has to wonder, why does he keep getting it back? And he was around a lot of toxic stuff in his life with the job that he had, and things like that, and it does run in his family, and so three of the rounds of cancer that he's had have been since he turned 73. So in the last 15 years, he's had cancer 3 times, and again, it's the kind of cancer that there's Katie. I'm going to move over to the panel, but yeah, my dad has had a couple rounds of that, and he's beat it all 3 times. And so I tell people that that the environment that he was in played an important role in this, and then his genetics now, since the age of 70, genetics plays an important role in it. But so people are more concerned though with Alzheimer's. They're more concerned with dementia than they are with getting getting cancer, because they've just assumed that if they live long enough, they're going to get it. And that might be true. It might be true. If you live long enough, if everybody lives long enough, you will get cancer, because it's just really, it's evolution. It's how your body starts to break down all of your components, and from dirt back to dirt. Your body goes back to being a bag of minerals and chemicals, and so if you live long enough, if you live to be 150 years old, hey, that's happened. It's just part of it. But when we're talking about dementia and early onset Alzheimer's, the thing is that I think that would be a horrible way to go. Hey, Katie, welcome to the call.
Thanks, Kurt. Thanks. Yeah, I just thought I'd make a comment there regarding what you just said about, cancer. And I just thought it was relevant for everyone listening on the call today, or listening to the recording. I will say the one thing, that the advances in oncology, people think about cancer and think, oh, how terrible, radiation and chemotherapy and all that, surgery. But the major advances in oncology at the moment, and I know this has helped your dad, it's a bit off topic at the moment, but I wanted to add it in there, is the immune therapy drugs, the new drugs that they have that are targeted, that specifically go after markers on cancer cells, and that assist the body by killing off those cancer cells, and then allowing the body's immune system to come in and pick it up. And so they certainly are getting a lot better in that regard, and developing a lot more immune therapy. And I remember speaking to an oncologist once at the hospital I used to work at, and he said that, the future of oncology is no kind of surgery, radiation, or chemo. It is the targeted therapy drugs that are discrete and just, really have minimal side effects and go after these cells. And so that kind of leads on to that other comment that you made, where, then people are not so worried then about cancer, they're more worried about getting dementia.
Yeah, definitely. They're more worried about it, but yet I don't know if a lot of people, they're worried. They tell me that they're worried, but when I tell them how to take some steps to lower their risk, a lot of people don't take those steps. Are you finding that same thing down there?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of my family members have got this situation going on, and both of them love to drink alcohol. They love to have their evening drink, and and if they go out to lunch, they'll have quite a bit. And the first thing in protecting your brain health is looking after your lifestyle and your body, in terms of what you're eating, what you're drinking. And certainly when you're starting to get older, and if you continue drinking alcohol, you are, it's an assault on the brain. I mean, bottom line is, alcohol is a poison to the body. It disrupts the microbiome in the gut. And, as I mentioned to you the other day, I've just started a course in an advanced certificate in nutrition for depression, anxiety, and stress. And one of the first things they've started talking about is how important the gut microbiome is to the brain and the mood. And, when you start drinking alcohol, you're knocking off that good microbiome. So you're interfering with your mood and also, your brain function, and, yet they know this, but are not willing to make the changes. It's just like, well, I'm not going to change that. I'm not going to stop drinking. I'm not going to change that. And that's just one thing, let alone all the other things in terms of like, diet, changing the diet around, making sure you're getting enough of the omega-3 fatty acids, the essential fatty acids, DHEA, EPA fatty acids, which we've got, a great product to support that. But, there's just an unwillingness to do that. And I don't know if it's out of fear or, I'm not sure. I guess probably if I thought about it a bit longer, I could give an answer maybe why. Just I guess habitual, and maybe they think that if I make the change now, it's not going to make a difference, or perhaps it's going to happen anyway. So why make the change? I'm not sure why that is exactly, but certainly diet plays a big role, and it leads me on to the other point that you were quite shocked at the other day when we were discussing that a doctor is actually recommending to a family member now that brought in this particular product and said you should take this, and it's backed by clinical research, they said, scientifically proven to slow dementia, or even stop it. Now, I can't remember the exact medical claims on it. They certainly did have a number of claims on it. But when I actually turned over and had a look, it was not a pharmaceutical. It was a nutraceutical, obviously endorsed by a pharmaceutical. And it was contained a number of key elements, including the full range of B vitamins. It contained EPA, DHA, the super omega essential fatty acids, and it also had the trace minerals in there, as well as A, D, E, and K.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I was talking about that earlier. I guess my
yeah,
microphone was muted out. It wasn't working. And I was talking about it, and I looked at the product when you sent it over to me, and when you sent over the ingredients in it, and Katie, the levels of the EPA and the DHA, the fish oil, wasn't really all that high.
no, no. And I remember hearing someone talking about a study and saying there's studies coming out saying that those levels only needed to be a certain amount in trials that they were doing to show them having an impact. And obviously they've put them at the minimum amount needed to actually have some sort of impact. But really, the point that to me shows is that how nutritionally deficient one starts to become as one ages. Firstly, there's a few reasons for that too, is that, as we age, it becomes harder and harder to eat,
Well,
sufficient quantity.
let,
Yeah, go on.
let me stop you there.
Yeah.
Before we kind of start saying this and that, let's look at what really happens. What
Yeah.
really causes the brain to start having the dementia and those kind of things. I mean, if you look at your brain, basically what it is, it's the neurons, and then they're connected by these tails, and the tails of the neurons are actually made up of fat.
Mm-hmm.
And studies 20 years ago, when that I attended, they talked about the brain on fire, and that was the name of the workshop that I went to. It's called Brain on Fire, and what happens is that the brain gets all inflamed. It gets all inflamed, and what causes inflammation is typically it's the fact that we're eating way too many carbohydrates, processed carbohydrates. But the other thing is that we're consuming way too many of these omega-6 fatty acids.
Mm-hmm.
And we're supposed to have a ratio of I mean, if we could have an ideal life and have a ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 of 1 to 1, for every one omega-6 molecule that you had one omega-3 molecule, it would be a perfect blend of the fats, because you do need omega-6. You do need to have that inflammation, because that's how your body deals with injuries. That's how your body deals with infections and things like that. So you do need some omega-6, but we don't need to have as much as what we have. And right now, with the standard American diet, which is the Western diet, we're consuming 15 parts of omega-6 for every 1 part of omega-3 that we consume in our diet. 15 to 1 versus 1 to 1.
Yeah. And I would
Yeah.
say that would be accurate for both those family members. I would for sure say that, you know, knowing what they eat and that. And it
Yep.
also, as you said, like you're 100% spot on there. And where I was about to say is that it also gets more difficult for people as they get older. And it can have the reverse. There's one thing that can happen. They cannot eat enough, or they can start eating too much. So appetite tends to diminish as people age. And I know one family member pretty much probably only eats one meal a day, and the other family member eats too many meals a day because they've probably forgotten that they've eaten.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
and then eating the wrong types of foods, you know, that certainly don't have any of the healthy fats. And, you know, the healthy fats, which I'm not sure if you already covered before I joined, but, you know, if you want to talk about the sources of those healthy fats.
Well, you know, for getting rid of inflammation, EPA
Mm.
is the type of fat that does that. And so
Mm.
many people are trying to stay away from eating meat, and they go vegan and things like that. It's hard to get enough of the DHA when you have a vegan type of lifestyle. So you got to kind of pay attention to it, because a lot of the vegan type lifestyle tends to be more omega-6s, so they cause more of the chronic inflammation. So that's important to note. You know, and fish oil has that right blend, and organically grass-fed, green finished meat, red meat, is closer to that 1-to-1, 4-to-1 ratio as well, as far as your EPA and your DHA, your omega-3s, your omega-6s being balanced out. But you know, a lot of people, it's in today's world, it's difficult to have you know, good quality meats. I mean, you go to the store. I was just at the store the other day. I mean, holy cow, the cost of fish, the cost of meat is way up there.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. I mean, interesting point when you said about eating, you know, a vegan plant-based. I went plant-based. I've done it now twice in my life, but I went plant-based, and I did it for a couple of years. But then, even when I was doing the plant-based, and when I met with a naturopath, he said, "Look, you really need your fish oil." And I said, "Well, I've got the Super Omega." He said that's great. He suggested taking more additional, another one. But he said, you know, obviously it comes, the best sources is fish sources. So, you know, being a vegan, pretty difficult to get around getting a good quality omega-3 not coming from a fish source. So I was okay with that at that point in time. So I was said, you know, I'm still going to take it. But then,
Yeah.
you know, of more recent times, I found, you know, it being too difficult to get the adequate protein, especially when you know, you train. If you do any sort of weightlifting and stuff like that, you do need sufficient protein to repair. And as we age, we need more protein to maintain muscle mass. And the challenge with that is that with the vegan diet, yes, you can get, you know, a certain amount from beans and legumes and tofu and that, but you certainly can't get up to the higher amounts. You have to eat an extreme large volume of food to do that. And it just, you know, it's just make really challenging. And then the other alternative is into substituting lots of shakes. But then if you're having shakes, it's not really the same as eating, you know, some quality food. So I've more recently gone back to eating organic chicken and organic eggs. And the thing with that, you're right, though, it is quite costly. You know, it costs a lot of money to buy the, you know, especially the
Right.
organic. You
Well,
know,
and if you're eating chicken, you know,
mm,
you're not going to get the choline. And
mm,
choline was another one of those active ingredients was in that product that you sent over to me when I looked it over. Choline, right?
mm.
And so it's hard to get choline from a vegan type diet. It comes from red meat, but it also
And
comes from
eggs.
eggs, and that's what I was
Yeah.
gonna say. So you can get it
Mm.
from eggs, you can get it from seafood as well, but it's higher in your red meat and that. So important things to note in that. But you know, and what's interesting is that we have choline in a number of different products, don't we?
Yes, we do. So there is a type in the Brain Vitality. It is in there. I've forgotten what it's. I don't think it's titled choline, and I remember looking at the ingredients. Do you remember what it's called?
Phosphatidylcholine.
There you go. That's why I couldn't remember it, because the name's so long. So yeah, we've got that in there. And is there, what other product? You just said a number of products.
Well, and magnesium is really important too, and we've got a lot of
Mm,
magnesium. The one thing that the malwares tend to do is put a good dose of magnesium in their product, because magnesium is necessary for proper brain function. It's necessary for bone health. It's necessary for a lot of different things. So we do tend to have some good magnesium in there as well. So brain vitality is really, really important, and the magnesium is going to help get rid of that inflammation. Remember, I said the seminar that I went to 2 decades ago was called Brain on Fire. So you want to get that magnesium to help get those levels of inflammation down. And then it's also got curcumin in it, and curcumin helps take that inflammation down. Because when there's inflammation, it's just like if I sprain my wrist, there's going to be a certain amount of inflammation. There's going to be scar tissue. You're going to have different kinds of cells that are going to come in there, and they're going to, there's going to be some damage at a cellular level.
mm,
And that's what happens when you get inflammation of the brain. You get that. So if you can keep that inflammation down, balance out those omega-3s and those omega-6s, get the magnesium in there, so you get that down. The choline, the fish oils, they all make an important thing. And I was so surprised when I looked at that product that you sent over, because
mm.
I mean, it was all natural, and they were making a lot of medical claims on
Oh
that
yeah.
particular product,
Wow.
which we can't do it with our product, because our product's never been tested. We're not we're not a testing laboratory that way.
No, and isn't it funny? And that, I just, it blew me off the chair when I read that, because it was sent over to me to take a look. What do you think of this? And I said, well, I said we can't make medical claims, but I can tell you I'm taking everything what's in that product I'm already getting. I'm not
Yep.
taking that product, and we can't make claims, but because now it's endorsed, by the pharmaceutical and now recommended by GP. So that's really interesting point what you make there about, what you can and can't say. But um, so that's interesting. But that made me have a thought just then when you're talking about inflammation, is like, what about the ingredients also in the Stemolytic product too?
Yeah.
The Stemolytic's
Well,
got two. Yeah,
and
did you mention that one?
that's what I was going to talk about next, is the age pill and Stemolytics
Yeah.
and
Okay.
TSX and things like that. Because again, when we start looking at dementia and Alzheimer's, it does tend to be one of those diseases that comes on later in life. And I was talking about how, early in life it's more your environment, later in life it's more your genetics. And so when we start looking at the environment, you're causing all this inflammation, you're causing damage, you're causing cells to go into senescence, right? Which is
Mm,
basically they tend to go to sleep, and the neurons they go into the senescence. The immune system goes into senescence. I've been reading a lot about the immune system, and senescence of the immune system, and and so Stemolytics is really important, because what it does is it goes in there, it takes out those damaged stem cells. It removes the damaged stem cells out of the brain, and the ingredients do. We can't say the product, but the ingredients are proven that they'll remove these damaged stem cells out of the brain. And then now what happens is, how this works is that you remove a damaged stem cell, and your body replaces it with a normal healthy stem cell. And then when your normal healthy stem cell gets into that position, think about like musical chairs. Hopefully you know what that is. You played that down in Australia. But so the healthy stem cell moves into the position where the old damaged stem cell was. And then now what it can do is it can go back in, and it can do repair of those damaged brain cells. Actually,
yeah.
it can actually pull one out and replace it with a healthy brain cell.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, the other thing too that product has is the activated B12 and B6. And it made me think. So here's an interesting piece of information for everyone on the call too. There's a proper well-known lab in Melbourne called Melbourne Pathology, and obviously there's different labs around Australia and obviously in the US. Now, if you go, these laboratories put out fact sheets, and so they have a recommended barrage of tests depending on what sort of thing, what issue you've got. And the lab actually has, printed material saying, if you've got this issue, go and get these things tested. And Melbourne Pathology has for dementia or memory loss, Alzheimer's, some recommended tests that they recommended. Now, the first stage is FBE, full blood. What does the E stand for there, Kurt? I can't remember. Anyway, full blood analysis, I think it is. But then you've got the ESR. So it's looking at, it's a urine test and it's looking at electrolytes. I don't know, TFT. That's the first stage, just generally. But what's more important, I wanted to draw to everyone on the call, is the second stage. The second stage of test they recommend is vitamin B12. They recommend to test red cell folate, so folate's B9. They recommend then to test for syphilis and lead levels. How about that? So yeah.
So they're looking for lead levels. So they're looking for toxins. They're looking for toxicity, heavy metal toxicity.
Yeah, and then the B9 and the B12. So that's interesting. So B12 is really a big player in memory problems. I remember reading that they tested a whole bunch of people in a nursing home, and they found that, I can't remember, 80% of them were B12 deficient. And they found that when they introduced the B12, it made a big difference. It didn't, cure them or anything, but for many, it made a big difference. There's also an important point that apparently they noted in the study that once you're deficient for long enough, you can cause irreversible damage there. And I'm quite convinced that, it's just my hypothesis that for my dad's dementia, this really is hits close to home, this call, because when we're talking about brain health, I've got current family members, but my dad developed early onset dementia at the age of 54, which is just, terrible.
Very early.
Yeah, and if you look at those 3 blood tests, what they're saying now, I believe that he had those 3 things going on, and the reason, plus an additional one, because the thing is that, like, I've genetically been tested. We've shown that I don't methylate properly the B vitamins. I don't methylate B6, 12, or 9, which is the folate, which basically means that I need more of it than everyone else, because I can't methylate and break it down and absorb it like a normal person can. So therefore, I'm at susceptibility of becoming deficient of those things. But also the other thing is to, we have the hemochromatosis in the family. That's known to can cause memory problems if you start getting overloaded with iron. That's what hemochromatosis does. Now, we know that he had that, and we didn't know until later on, till it was too late. And the other thing too, his job, and like what you said, environment is really important. So he was an aircraft maintenance engineer, and he used to sit around the table soldering away. And I remember going in there in year 12. This is going back a long time, right? 25 years ago, no more, 27, no more, 30, possibly around that time. But there was a bunch of guys sitting in a little room, and they're all soldering away, and they only, God knows what heavy metals they're using during soldering, but I'm sure they contain lead and other nasty things. And the whole room was full of vapor. They didn't even they didn't ventilate the room. They're breathing these in, do that job for 15 years, throw in some genetics that I've just mentioned, and you've got a recipe for disaster. I mean, that's my hypothesis there, but I think there's some pretty solid, evidence to say it would have made a contribution. So, really interesting topic. But
and you take a look at lead and mercury. I mean, how toxic is that? A study about 2 decades ago, they did a study, and what they did is they gave mice or rats, they gave them the just below the toxic level of mercury, and a majority of the rats survived. And then they did the same thing with lead. They gave the rats a just below the toxic level of lead, and they gave the rats that level of lead. And again, none or very few of the rats died from that. But then what they did is they took those same rat lab animals, and what they did is they gave them the non-toxic level of mercury combined with the non-toxic level of lead. So mercury and lead, both non-toxic levels, and when they combined them, 100% of the rats died.
Wow. Yeah. So that's the thing too, and that the iron for him, iron is, it's a central nutrient for life, and you have problems if you don't have enough. And a lot of people are deficient in it, but then you do have this genetic condition where some people are not. And I think the stats run at about well, I think it was at least 1 in 250 people who are double gene holders, and probably I think 1 in 125 potentially um, compound heterozygous or have trouble. But you can also have trouble if you have too much iron as well. But just before we finish the call, we want to touch on the fantastic product, the Age Pill. Like what you said, we just talked about Stemolytic. Let's just quickly talk about, before we finish up, how that can help. And I'll share my testimonial for today as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the whole thing about the Age Pill, not only does it have the ingredients to help your body make NAD, which helps clean up the system and just make it so that everything works right. It gets the gunk out of there, because you get a lot of gunk buildup in the cells, and when that happens, they just can't function properly. And the Age Pill has the right support to help clean that up. It's got some of these ingredients that we talked about that can actually help go in there and help clean up the mess and make it so it works better. And when you have energy, your body's gonna function more properly.
Yeah, fantastic. And I was thinking, like, on a testimonial that Andrea gave on the previous call, I think it was a couple of calls back, about how much of a difference it made to her that she was able to start recalling numbers, telephone numbers, and recall digits. She just thought of them and they were in her mind, whereas before there was just, it was just blank and she couldn't remember. And I thought, that was amazing. But more recently, I've been doing the 2-week challenge, and taking a higher dose, which I decided to do. I was taking four in the morning, four before lunch, and 4 before dinner. And what's amazing is that if going past the 2-week challenge, maybe didn't notice it so much in the first 2 weeks, but as times progress, I definitely have noticed, my memory to be sharper, and just my recall better, and especially with numbers, like, when you get sent those little codes to your phone.
Yep.
And it's like, put these in,
Two-factor authentication. Yeah.
Yeah. And they'll send at least a 6-digit code. Just the ability to recall that quicker without actually having to go back and refer to it, just looking at it once and then being able to punch it in with no problem at all. I've noticed that, okay, you could say it's just a coincidence, but I actually felt that has improved. And also just listening and retaining information. Now I'm listening to some lectures and hearing people talk about, all this nutrition information, and I am finding I'm able to remember and retain that information better. Now, we can't really make claims. We can't make claims on our product, but could be a coincidence, but I don't think so. I think that it has been supporting my brain and making a difference for me. So I definitely think, it's just such great go-to product. I absolutely love it and highly recommend it.
Well, and Katie, my testimony. When I first started taking the Age Pill, one of the first things that I noticed was that I didn't need reading glasses anymore. I haven't worn reading glasses in over 5 years, and so it helped out with that. But the other thing is that I used to have my pocket full of Post-it notes at the end of the day, because I'd jot things down. I'd go, oh, I got to remember that, and I'd write it down. And I'd write it down on a piece of paper. I'd throw it in my pocket. End of the day, I'd come in the house. I'd have a pocket full of little notes that I wrote myself. I don't have anything in my pocket. I mean, I can reach my pocket right now, and it's empty.
Well, and that's a great end to this call, and that's why we're here. That's why we're sharing this information, because we're really very passionate about it, and we'd love to share this information that might make a difference in someone's life and really help them. And just a quick side note, the FBE stands for full blood examination. So yeah.
Okay.
Just
so let's recap this really quickly before we close the call. Brain Vitality, really, really important, because it's got just those powerful nutritional products to help with the brain. The Super Omega, it's got the fish oils, which help get rid of the inflammation. Plus, it's got the CoQ10, which is really, really, really important for heart health and for brain health as well. The Age Pill, because it's got that ability to help support the body, helping make NAD. Stemolytics, because it cleans up those old dead dying cells, and it helps get the body so that the new healthy young stem cells can come in and replace and repair the damage that's happened over the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years of your life. And you do a good combination of this. Plus, I don't want to forget this one, SpectraMax. Like Katie said, that product that she sent me the ingredients for, It had a lot of vitamins and minerals, and I really think Spectrum X, I mean, hands down, there isn't a better mineral product on the planet, you know. So
Yeah.
I think you got to have that in the mix as well. So
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic.
all right. Thanks
Great.
everybody for being with us. Katie, thanks for being with us tonight. And for those of you that are watching the video, get back to the person that shared it with you and just let them know that you're interested in finding out more. Maybe you want to try some of these products and give them a good go. Don't just take it for a day or two and say, oh, I didn't notice anything. You know, nutritional products tend to take a little bit longer than drugs. They don't trick your body into doing anything, you know, so take them for, you know, commit to taking them for 90 days. You know, my dad, when he started taking the Brain Vitality, he came back to me after the first 30 days and he said, I'm never going to be without that.
Yeah. And I think that other product, they said that you have to give it 6 months, Kurt.
6 months. There you go.
Mm.
All right.
Yep.
All
Okay,
right. Thanks,
have a great
everyone.
time.
Have a good
Thanks, Kurt.
weekend and enjoy. Bye-bye.
Bye.